Hello everyone, welcome back to Tall Guy Reads. My name is Alex, and today we are going to be doing the first ever book haul on this channel. Let's do it. So before we jump into the actual haul itself, I do want to briefly mention that, this is something that I love to do. In addition to reading books, I love to collect them, and I always have. Whether it's a new book, a used book, a hardcover, a beat up mass market paperback, I love, just the act of going to a bookstore or going online and finding a book that excites me, whether it's a new author, an author that I've been reading all my life, and I'm just trying to add more by them to my collection or anything. And over the last couple of weeks, I've made a number of pickups at used and new and online bookstores that I am just so excited about. And I thought, what better time to do an actual book haul video than right now, because there's a number of books in here that I'm very excited about and would love to share with you all. So without any further hesitation, let's dive into the list. Okay, so I have about 20 books here that I'm going to share with you guys, and I'm so excited about all of these. But the first couple of books that I'm going to share with you are books that were sent to me, whether from an author or just some friends. And I just wanted to show these first because I was so excited to receive these, and these absolutely made my day when I got them. So the first book on here is The Legend of Blackjack by A.R. Witham. And this is a self-published indie author, and he's very active in the community and very active on the book Twitter community and everything. And I just have heard nothing but amazing things about this book. And he was kind enough to, reach out and ask if he could send me a signed copy of this book. And I said, absolutely. I've heard amazing things about this book, and I would love to give it a chance when I have some time open up. So I said yes, he sent this to me, and I couldn't be more thrilled because I am so excited to read this book. I know it's kind of a YA fantasy adventure story, similar in tone to Treasure Island, at least from what I can tell. And I don't really know much more about it other than that, but I know like Scott from The Bald Booktuber and Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads and Madison from Madison Goodyear have all read this book recently and have had nothing but amazing things to say about it. So I am very excited to pick this up and give it a chance, and hopefully I'll be getting to it soon because this was just so kind that he sent this to me, and it just made my day when I received it. So I'm excited to read The Legend of Blackjack. So the next two books I'm going to share were books that were sent to me by Theo over at Rekindled Reader, and I just want to say thank you, Theo, because these made my day when I received these. I opened up my mailbox and saw these two books, and I was just like, wow, blown away. So I just want to say thank you and show off the books that you sent me, because the first one is The Paper Menagerie and Other Stories by Ken Liu. And as you know, I love Ken Liu. He's one of my favorite new writers, and I absolutely love the Dandelion Dynasty. I read all 4 of the books in the Dandelion Dynasty this year and was blown away by everything in that story. So I'm very excited to move on to his short stories because, this is what really put him on the map in a lot of ways. And a lot of people say that this is some of the best short story writing they've read in a number of years. And I'm very excited to finally get to these short stories because I've heard incredible things, and I just can't wait to read more Ken Liu. So yeah, Paper Menagerie and Other Stories was the first book he sent. And then the second book he sent was actually Eric of Melniboone by Michael Moorcock. This is the first deluxe volume. I think there's going to be 3 of these. I think there's 2 out now, and there's going to be a third one coming out later this year. But this is a classic fantasy series that I don't really know much of, but I absolutely love this cover art, and it's been something that has been come up on my radar and come up on my reading TBR in the last couple of months as I've seen more people talk about it a little bit and read it, and it just sounds very interesting to me, and I want to add some more classic fantasy to books that I'm reading on the everyday, and I just can't wait to read something like this because this is one that I feel like doesn't get talked about that much, but when it gets talked about, a lot of people absolutely love it. And I love these new deluxe editions that they're doing for this series because the art on here is absolutely stunning. So this and Paper Menagerie, I just want to say thank you, Theo. Made my day when you sent these books to me. So the next book was sent to me by RJ over at RJ Reads, and I just want to say thank you, RJ, because this also made my day. This absolutely surprised me when I opened up my mailbox and saw this, because you sent me Blackstone Heart by Michael R. Fletcher, and I have been wanting to read this for a while, especially anything by Michael R. Fletcher. He was put on my radar with Beyond Redemption when that book came out, and everyone was like, this is the darkest grimdark book I've ever read, and I still think it's pretty much considered the darkest grimdark book out there. And color me intrigued. I haven't read it yet, but I definitely want to try it. But I've heard fantastic things about this trilogy. This is Blackstone Heart, book one of the Obsidian Path trilogy, and I know Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads and Joanna have read all three books this year, and absolutely loved it. And I'm so intrigued by the premise. Basically, a man wakes up with no recollection of his past and has to move on the Obsidian Path and try to, regain this memory of who he was and try to find out what he's doing there. And that's where the story starts. And so I'm very excited to give this story a shot because I love the cover art too. And these aren't really long, so it would be a great way for me to kind of incorporate something a little bit shorter in my reading of some of these longer fantasy series like Realm of the Elderlings or something like that. And I've wanted to read this for a while. Mike R. Fletcher is an author that I've heard fantastic things about, and I can't wait to read Blackstone Heart. So yeah, thank you, RJ. This absolutely made my day when you sent this book to me. So the next set of books are new books that I just picked up at a new bookstore because I'm very interested in them and I want to read them. And let's just dive into it. So the first book on here is Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Muir. This is book one of the Locked Tomb trilogy, which I think is concluding later this year with book three, Nona the Ninth. And I honestly don't really know anything about this trilogy, but the cover art has grabbed me every single time I look at it when I go in the store over the last couple of months. And I've always been very intrigued about it, but I have heard very mixed things about the trilogy. So I kind of was hesitant, never really picked it up because I was like, there's so many other books that I would love to get to. So I just never went and grabbed it and decided to bring it home. However, a couple weeks ago, Kyle from Read by Kyle and Jordan from Jordan Lamagna Meneghetti, I'll link their channels below so you can check them out. They recommended this book, and I was like, okay, well, if you're saying it, I trust your opinion, so, I'll check it out. I'll give it a chance, and so I picked it up, and hopefully I'll get to it soon because, it'd be really cool if I liked it because the third book is coming out, and it'd be really fun to, read the whole trilogy as the new book releases. So I am very excited to check this book out because the cover art is insane, and I just would love to see what the actual story is about and experience the story and hopefully really enjoy it. So, yeah, Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Muir is the first book. And then I also picked up A Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark. And this is a book that, wow, this won a bunch of awards. It's just recently won a huge fantasy award. And this is a book that I've wanted to read for a while. Recently, Jimmy over the Fantasy Network read this and did a review on it. Fantastic review, by the way. Definitely check it out if you're interested in this book. And immediately jumped it to the top of my TBR because this sounds fascinating. It's basically a noir murder mystery or a noir mystery set in Cairo, Egypt in an alternate history with magic. And that sounds absolutely so intriguing to me. And so I can't wait to read this. I know he's written a bunch of other short stories that are kind of tie into the same world. And I'm not sure if I should read those before reading this book. If you have any opinion, either way, please let me know because I definitely want to dive into this world and into Clark's writing, and I would love to do it, in the best way possible. So I definitely want to read the short stories and A Master of Jinn, and can't wait for, some of the later books to come in this series because I definitely think there is a second book coming out soon, at least from what he said. There's just hasn't been a lot of information released on it lately. So yeah, A Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark is the next book that I picked up, and I can't wait to read this one. Okay, and the last new book I picked up is one that I picked up the other day, and this is Eversion by Alistair Reynolds, and this is his new book, and this is way shorter than I thought it was. I actually was expecting a 600-page standalone. This is a 300-page standalone. So this, honestly, when I went to the bookstore and grabbed this, I was like, this might move its way up to TBR very quickly because I love a 300-page standalone, especially one that's written by a titan of science fiction like Alistair Reynolds. And I haven't read any Alistair Reynolds, and I've always wanted to, and I never knew where to start. I know The House of Suns, Pushing Ice are big books that he's really well known for, and of course Revelation Space and that trilogy. But Eversion sounds like an also really interesting place to start because it's short, and it would give me a really good insight into his writing style and just the type of science fiction that he writes. And this premise just sounds very interesting. Basically, there's a bunch of disasters that have happened over the course of a number of years, and they're all linked because the same doctor is always a part of it, and they keep repeating themselves. And so they're trying to get to the bottom of what's happening. So I'm very excited to read this and check it out. I actually think I'm going to be reading it way sooner than I originally intended. And that makes me really excited because I can't wait to read Alistair Reynolds. And after reading the Three Body Problem trilogy and some other science fiction, Alistair Reynolds has moved up my list in order of like my sci-fi TBR that I want to read. So Eversion by Alistair Reynolds, his new book. I cannot wait to read this book. Okay, so the next category of books here I have are kind of new, but there is one old one. But these are all signed books, and these are all like, there's 3 books here, and they're all signed. 2 of them are limited editions. One of them is just a signed first edition, and I love finding signed editions. I think they add such a unique feel to a book when you're like opening a book's page and you see the author's signature, like, hey, the author wrote this book, signed this page. For some reason, to me, that just, I'm gravitated to that every time. And if there's a book that is signed and a book that's not signed, I will try my best to get the one that is signed because I just love it when I can find that. So the first one here is The Jade Setter of Janloon, and this, of course, is the prequel novella to the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. And this was done by Subterranean Press. So this is, this has been signed by Fonda Lee and numbered out of 1,000. And I am very excited to read this. I haven't read Greenbone Saga, and I know this is a prequel novella, and I'm not sure if, I should read this before Greenbone Saga. I don't think so. I think I'm going to just read the original trilogy and then go back and read this novella afterwards. But I am very excited to read this. I've heard great things, and that this adds, some great extra time spent in the world. It's not necessarily the most critical addition to like the actual Greenbone Saga, but is very interesting. A lot of people who have read it have really enjoyed their time with it. So yeah, I picked this up because I can't wait to read Fonda Lee, and this book and this cover alone is so cool. So I can't wait to read The Jade Setter of Janloon. The next signed book that I have is another special edition, and that of course is the Warbreaker special edition by Brandon Sanderson. Ever since this came out, I've regretted not buying it. And when they finally announced that they were going to restock signed editions, I was like, okay, I'm jumping on it the second that gets posted. And so when it did, I jumped on it and I got it. And this one is signed by Brandon Sanderson. And I haven't read Warbreaker, but honestly, just by the premise and just by like some reviews that I've heard about it, this seems like this could be one of my favorite Cosmere books in the whole Cosmere, just because it just sounds so intriguing. And I love a good standalone. And I know it's not necessarily a standalone because there is supposed to be a sequel coming out down the road, and I'm sure it will be. But for now, this just seems like a very compelling standalone, and I can't wait to read it. And I think I'm going to be reading it pretty soon because I do want to read it before I dive into Stormlight Archive, which unfortunately I haven't read yet. So I definitely want to read this and Elantris and Mistborn Era 2 before reading Stormlight Archive, and I hope to do that, very soon. So yeah, Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, the leatherbound edition. The art in this is absolutely stunning. If you guys haven't seen it, even just the end papers are gorgeous. I love when art is spread through a book, and so every couple of pages or every couple of dozen of pages you get a new piece of artwork. It always is just so intriguing, and I love the ones that are in this book are stunning, and I just can't wait to read this with the artwork because I think it's going to add another layer of immersion for me when I'm reading Warbreaker. So yeah, Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Can't wait to read this book, and I'm so happy to finally have the signed edition. And the other signed book that I have is actually not a special edition, but it is a first edition, and that is Clive Barker's The Great and Secret Show. And this is book 1 of the Book of the Art series. Now, there's only 2 books out in the series, and I really don't think we're ever going to get more than that, but that's fine. That doesn't take away from the fact that, this is one of the biggest titans of horror, weird fiction that has ever lived. And this is one of, his most popular books outside of the big ones like Weave World and Imagica. So when I found this book and I found it signed, and it is inscribed to Kathleen, I don't know who Kathleen is, but this is just blew me away just to have a signed book by Clive Barker. And this is a first American edition. I love the artwork on this book, and I can't wait to read Clive Barker. I've read a lot of his short stories and a lot of his shorter works and like The Thief of Always and stuff when I was growing up. And I can't wait to get to some of his full-length novels. So this and Weave World and Imagica. And I was so excited when I saw this because I jumped on it and I was like, yes, I'm adding that to my collection. And I was so thrilled when it arrived because it was in great condition for, how old this book is. And it was signed and I was just blown away. So yeah, very excited to add this to my collection. Okay, so the last group of books that are on this book haul are used books. And these are books that, I love. I love going to used bookstores and finding really good books that are just great condition of like first editions or books that I'm very excited to get to and authors that I've, added to my radar that I want to find books that they've written, and I find them at used bookstore for like an insanely good price. And I just absolutely love, hunting at used bookstores. I have a number of books here that I found at used bookstores that have absolutely just, I'm so excited about. So I can't wait to show these, and we're going to dive into them right now. So the first book on here is actually The War of the Flowers by Tad Williams. And I was so pumped to find this because I released a video that was like, the best best fantasy standalones that I can't wait to read. And the one book that I didn't include on this list is the one that Jimmy from the Fantasy Network called out. And he said, read The War of the Flowers by Tad Williams. It's a great fantasy standalone. And for me, I was totally intrigued by that the moment he said that, because I haven't read any Tad Williams, and I plan on reading Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn next year. But, it would be really nice to read something by Tad Williams leading up to that. So The War of the Flowers was one that, as soon as I read the premise and I read that, this is an epic fantasy standalone, I was like, yes, I'm sold. I can't wait to read it. And I found it. And this is a first US edition. And oh my God, I love the artwork on this. I mean, this whole cover is absolutely stunning. And then the back cover, oh my God, it's stunning. I love everything about the artwork on this book, and I can't wait to read it. And I can't wait. I was just so excited to add this to my collection. So yeah, The War of the Flowers by Tad Williams is the first book that I picked up at the used bookstore. And then I also picked up Cryptonomicon by Neil Stevenson. And this is a book that I've wanted to read forever. I mean, I've seen this at probably every used bookstore that I could name for the last 5 years that I've gone to a used bookstore. And they are usually really beat up. Like every time I find a copy of Cryptonomicon, it's usually like a really beat up paperback version of it. And I'm always intrigued by the premise because it sounds so cool. It's like a mix of science fiction, fantasy, history, big mystery type of thing. And I just, it sounds very intriguing and something that is right up my alley in a lot of ways. And I just have never been able to find an edition that just is in really good condition. So I found this one, and this is a first edition, and it was just in really good condition for, what it was and for its price. And I was like, yes, I'm absolutely adding this to my collection because I've been wanting to read this for so long. And I can't wait to read some Neil Stevenson, because Cryptonomicon and Snow Crash and The Baroque Cycle are books that, they've been on my radar for years, but the size of them is so large. I mean, this is a huge book, and I'm always like, there's so many other books I want to read. I don't know when I can fit in books that are that long that I'm just trying to, experiment with and see if I enjoy. But hopefully I can do this soon. And so if you haven't read Cryptonomicon and you're interested in doing so, let me know, because I would love to read this soon. Okay, so the next two books that I picked up were actually, this is a duology that I've been wanting to read for a while. And this is the Ilium and Olympos Odyssey by Dan Simmons. And let me just hold it like this so you can see it. These are, it should be that way. Book 1, Book 2, Ilium, Olympos. This is basically a retelling of the Iliad and the Odyssey from space. And I mean, that premise alone is mind-blowing to me, and I cannot wait to read it. Dan Simmons, of course, is the writer of Hyperion, and he's also written a ton of other books in various genres, like The Terror, which is a horror novel. He's written, Carrion Comfort, which is also a horror novel, and he's written the Hyperion Cantos and a number of other books. And this is a duology that is one of those works by him that just reading the premise made me so intrigued. And I've always wanted to find these books, like the actual first editions of them, because the cover art on these is gorgeous and I absolutely love them. So I was so thrilled to finally find these, add these to my collection, because I cannot wait to read these. So again, if you have any interest in reading it, let me know, because I would love to get to this very soon. So yeah, this is Ilium and Olympos by Dan Simmons. Okay, and as you know, last month I read Perdido Street Station by China Mieville, and after finishing that book, I was just enthralled by Mieville's writing, and I just wanted to read, more by him. And I definitely want to read The Scar and Iron Council, which are set in that same world that Perdido Street Station is set in. But I also want to read some of his other things. And I was at a used bookstore, and they had just a huge China Mieville collection, and I picked up two of them. I picked up Embassy Town, which is this one right here, and I also picked up The City in the City, which is right here. And these sound very interesting. I don't know, which one came out first, but This is kind of like a science fiction novel, and this is China Mieville's science fiction novel, and this is his murder mystery that I believe probably has elements of fantasy and science fiction in it as well. So I cannot wait to read these. I've heard great things about both of these. He is, he's a very creative. He's very imaginative in his world building and just his settings and his characters that are in the story. And he also has a lot of themes and political undertones in his writing that, I think are done very well. And I definitely want to read more by him. So I was very excited to add these to my collection because I'm very much looking forward to reading some more China Mieville. So yeah, Embassy Town and The City in the City, was thrilled to pick these up. I picked up 2 more science fiction novels, and these are very different in what they are. But the first one is Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. And this is a classic science fiction novel by a titan of classic science fiction. I haven't read anything by Heinlein, but Stranger in a Strange Land and Starship Troopers are some of the most well-regarded science fiction novels ever written, and he is the author of those. So I am very excited to finally, give him a shot and really dive into some classic science fiction. And I can't wait to read this because the premise of this sounds very interesting. It's a Martian man who comes to Earth with superhuman abilities, kind of like Superman. That's what comes to mind when I think of it. And, I was thrilled when I saw this because it says, for the first time, the original uncut. I didn't know there was an edition that came out before the original uncut version, but I'm glad that I have the original uncut version because that way I'm not missing anything. So I am very excited to read this. I hope to get to it soon because I would love to add more classic science fiction to what I'm reading, just every month. So yeah, this is Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. And the other science fiction novel that I added to my collection is one that I was so pumped about because I wanted to read this for so long, and that is The Passage by Justin Cronin. And this is a post-apocalyptic novel, and I have found that I love post-apocalyptic fiction. I just read Swan Song, as you know. I love The Stand, and I love The Road. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and all of these handled post-apocalyptic fiction in a very different way. And The Passage is one that I've heard incredible things about. Basically, this is like a science fiction horror novel that explores what happens after a failed military experiment results in an apocalyptic type of event where, the refugees and the people that are surviving have to fight for their survival. So the premise alone sounds very interesting to me. I have always wanted to read this book because a lot of people have this on their list of best apocalyptic fiction and best science fiction horror blend that you could find. And, this is a TV show, I think. I've never watched it, but because I never wanted to, because I was like, if I'm going to read or watch anything related to the story, I'm going to read the book first. So The Passage by Justin Cronin. I've always wanted to hold out and find a first edition copy, and I did, and this was in pretty good condition for like the $3 it cost or whatever it was, and so I was thrilled to pick this up because I love this original artwork, and I definitely want to read Justin Cronin's work, and there's no other place I'd rather start than with The Passage. So I'm excited to read this. I know Ian from Ian the Reader says that he hasn't read The Passage and would love to read in October, so we're thinking about potentially making this an October buddy read. So if you have any interest in reading The Passage, let me know because maybe we could make this a thing and read this in October. And the final book on this list is one that I am so thrilled to finally add to my collection. And this is one I've been looking for years, and that is the first edition of A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. I absolutely love this book, and I love this cover art, and I've been looking for this for so long, and I've never been able to find one that's in good condition. They're all super beat up all the time. Either the dust jacket's totally torn off, or they're just way too much money for, like, honestly what they should be. So I've never been able to add one to my collection, and recently I found this one, and it's in very good condition, I would say, and it's a first edition, and it is just, dust cover is intact, everything looks good, and the artwork, I'm just still so blown away by this artwork. This and A Storm of Swords, the original first editions for those two books, I love that original artwork, and I wish they did it for the whole series because I could look at this all day and just analyze everything in this picture. But I am so excited to add this to my collection. I now have all 5 books as a first edition except for the first book. That book is just so hard for me to find an actual first edition of that book, but I do have the other 4, and I'm so excited to finally add this to my collection. I can't wait to be rereading A Song of Ice and Fire. I think we're going to be doing a massive read along starting in January of 2023. We're going to be reading, all 5 books, and probably some of the extended universe and everything like that, probably Fire and Blood and A Knight of Seven Kingdoms and everything like that. And I'm so excited to do that. So if you have any interest in joining that, definitely do so, because I think we have a lot of people that are going to be a part of that read along, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And there's a lot of new readers that haven't ever read the series before, and I cannot wait for them to read this. I know Theo over at Rekindled Reader has never read A Song of Ice and Fire, and I'm just so excited to just watch his reactions as we move through the series. So yeah, A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin is the last book that's part of this book haul, and I'm so excited to add this version to my collection. Okay, so overall, that is my book haul for the last couple of weeks. I am so excited that I finally sat down and did this video, because a lot of these books I'm so excited to finally show to you guys, because, you know, I'm always adding books to my collection. New, used, signed, limited, beat up mass market paperbacks. It doesn't matter. I'm always hunting for books, and I love adding things to my collection. And you know, I don't know if I'm gonna be doing this type of video regularly or anything like that, but when I have, you know, a number of books that I'm really excited about and can't wait to show you guys, I absolutely will sit down and show you some of the books I got. So I'm very excited to do this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy this content. If you do, please think about subscribing, hitting that bell notification down below if you want to get updates of new videos as they come out. Hitting that like button, it helps me out, it helps the channel out a lot, and I really appreciate it. But with all of that said, I hope you guys have a fantastic day.